Lord Moylan, you know this man well. You've advised him, you've worked close beside him. He fights on, to use a phrase.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think there's no sense at all in Boris actually voluntarily resigning. And actually, I think the Cabinet is stronger this morning than it was yesterday morning, because we've seen two politicians go who basically at the end of their political lives. I mean, they don't really have a future. Rishi could have, but he doesn't really want it, I think. And they've gone, and they haven't been that strong and effective in the last few months.
You don't think you're looking at...
I think we're better off now.
You don't think you're looking at men who could be future Prime Ministers or leader of the Conservative Party in those two?
Well, I don't think Sajid Javid, following his own revelation that he was non-domiciled for 6 years while working here, can really put himself forward in front of people and say, I'm putting taxes up for you, or I just don't think he's got a credibility.
Yeah.
Rishi's in a different position.
Yeah.
Of course, he hasn't. I'm quite modern on this, Eamon. I don't think somebody is responsible for his wife's tax affairs.
Yes.
So that's a different position. But I think he was promoted very early. He's had a lot of knocks he hadn't expected. He has lots of other opportunities in life, and I sometimes wonder if he really wants to go on. At that level. He could. You're right, he could.
You just heard Tom Harwood talking there about Rishi Sunak's letter, which was undated. So it could have come in any time. It may have been sitting there for a while, ready to go. But he talks about, and, I'm asking you this because you worked side by side with Boris Johnson. Sunak says the public expected government to be conducted, his words, properly, competently and seriously. Has he a point?
Well, I think Boris is very, very serious. And I think when you look at the affairs he's engaged in, from public affairs, from the pandemic and Ukraine and so on, he's shown himself to be a very serious leader. I've always had some criticisms about the team that's there at number 10. We were told that would be improved. It has been improved to some extent, but you can always do better on that. I think he is competent. I think one of the problems is, though, that he is constantly under attack. There are constant there's the Dominic Cummings. I mean, Cummings must be the worst political appointment since Rasputin. When you think
Boris appointed him, didn't he?
Yeah, I know, that was a huge mistake.
I imagine Boris's judgment.
I imagine he regrets that very much indeed. And consciously leaking and betraying from behind the scenes the whole time, with the deliberate view of getting him out. I think a lot of members of the public see that there is something of a campaign to get him out when they voted him in. And the argument that Boris should be removed by the electorate in a democracy, if he's going to be removed at all, not by a small band of skittish Conservative MPs, the argument that he should be given his chance to put himself in front of the electorate is a strong one in a democracy.
Yes. And maybe a very good one for him. Lord Moylan raises that point, Norman, and we've got Keir Starmer's calling for, a general election. And you sit there, look, if there's, there are a few ways out, perhaps, for Boris Johnson, but a general election could well be one of them.
Well, it could be. He's got one roll of the dice left, in my view, which is a general election if he wants to go down that road. And indeed, he may take the view cynically that it's a good idea to do that before the Privileges Committee reports on whether or not he's deliberately misled Parliament, which is an investigation which has now begun. Of course, Keir Starmer's asking for a general election. He couldn't not ask for a general election as leader of the opposition. Mm-hmm. But whether he actually wants one or not, I don't know. Because
so be careful what he asks for.
Well, you may take the view that Boris Johnson's the best recruiting sergeant for the Labour Party and Lib Dems at the moment.
Yeah. Lord Moylan, quite clearly saying, and I saw this from Jacob Rees-Mogg last night, that the Prime Minister fights on. He has absolutely no intention at this moment of resigning. Do you think he either has run out of road, is running out of road, or will stay on?
I think Lord Moylan mentioned Rasputin earlier on in a different context. I mean, the Rasputin analogy I would give here is that Boris Johnson has been shot, he's been dumped in the river, he's been strangled, he's still there. He's not going anywhere unless he's absolutely crowbarred out of Downing Street by his own MPs. That's the only way he's going to go. He's made it very clear he wants to carry on, and I'm afraid that the Prime Minister, in my view, is interested predominantly in his own position, not interested in the Conservative Party or in the public at large or the nation, and that's what he's after. He wants power. He wants to stay in number 10. Well, that's where he's at.
Like the good Lord, you have worked with him through the London when he was London Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah. where do you stand on the gradings of properly, competently and seriously conducting government?
I didn't warm to Boris Johnson when I was a Transport Minister. I found him somewhat arrogant and dismissive of other people. And I also found him duplicitous, quite frankly. And, I'm not a Conservative, but I've dealt with Conservatives whom I respect a great deal. I worked with Theresa May for over a year in the Home Office as a minister there. I didn't agree with Theresa May on very much at all, but I always thought Theresa May was basically decent, honest, had the interests of the country at heart. I don't think it's the case with the Prime Minister.
Look where she landed us.
Indeed, she wasn't a great success, but she was basically honest. I don't think this man is.
What has this man got, Lord? What has he got that we may miss if he goes?
Oh, I think what you're going to miss if Boris goes is a sense of a real person in Downing Street, a real person who has got flaws as well as strengths. I think you will get a succession of plastic, starting with, might be Keir Starmer, essentially inauthentic people dressed up, put up in front of cameras, all looking essentially the same, one after the other, and that is how life is going to go on, because nobody who has got any character at all will ever be allowed near Downing Street by his party, because it'll say, you cannot be yourself and be Prime Minister of this country.
And you are proud that he is leader of the Conservative Party, that he is running the country. You are happy to see the country being run by Boris Johnson.
This country is going through a period of very significant change.
Yes.
And we have not embraced how important those changes are as a country. We haven't embraced. So Brexit, all the other things that are happening, this is the time of huge change. Now, Boris has been at the heart of those. He's made those changes happen. There are some people who will never forgive him for that. There are some people who will carry on attacking him, and they will carry on attacking his character as far as they can, rather than his policies, which are not right-wing particularly. That some people complain about that. So they'll carry on attacking his character because they'll never forgive him for Brexit. Now, it's true that sometimes Boris and the operation at Number 10 give them easy shots at the goal, and that is something that needs tightening up. But the truth is, we owe him a huge amount for the way he has turned this country into a new direction, both through Brexit, seeing us through the pandemic, and now we've got to get through the fact that the whole strategic position for the West has changed as a result of Putin's actions, and he is the one leading a whole swathe of Europe. Europe, the EU, is totally split on how to react in two camps. One of those camps looks to the UK, even though we've actually left the European Union. One of those camps looks to the UK. The French, Germans and Italians are all off trying to work out how not to humiliate Russia. But Boris has given real leadership to those Eastern European countries, really worked with Zelensky to show that you can stand up for our freedoms. Now, these are the really big issues, and I'm proud of the way he's conducted himself on those.
I actually agree with the Lord Moylan that the response on Ukraine from the Prime Minister and the Cabinet has been good. I do think that's right. However, I think it's a stretch to say that this is about revenge for Brexit. There are a great many Conservative MPs, as he will know.
Heseltine last night. All Heseltine ever appears on the television for revenge on Brexit.
He's not the only one. There are Conservative MPs, as you'll know, who have voted no confidence in the Prime Minister, who are strongly in favour of Brexit. This is not a Brexit issue.
No, it is a Brexit issue, but there are other issues going on. The big thing is the Brexit issue. The big thing
it's the big thing, not the Pincher effect.
Brexit. No, I think we've already moved on from Pincher.
Really, do you not think that he's facing this crisis because of a sex scandal? It's going to be a sex scandal that's brought him down.
Well, no, I don't think that's right. He's facing this. I think he's coping with the crisis. He's not facing a crisis. He has handled well a crisis which has been brought on, not by a sex scandal as such, but by a question about his judgment in appointing somebody with a history of handsiness to a position.
That's not the issue. The issue is not the sex scandal involving this deputy whip who no one's ever heard of before last week. The issue is that he said he knew nothing about it, and then yesterday morning, let's just wind back 24 hours, Lord MacDonald, the former Permanent Secretary at the Foreign Office, said he did know about it. He'd been briefed personally. And the issue is he has misled people. He's lied in public. And it's just the same as Partygate. When he makes a statement, he then has to resign from it and he ends up apologising. It's the same pattern again and again and again.
And the pattern is deny, no, it didn't happen, then admit it did happen, then the same apology, I'm very sorry, I'm very sorry, I'm very sorry. Does that not begin to wear thin?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we get there in the end, don't we? I mean, he's different from other people. He's not a lawyer. I think it's really important that I'm not saying Boris lies and gets away with it, because essentially the Boris Johnson I know and worked with for 8 years is an essentially truthful person, and during those 8 years there were no instances I can think of going out in public where I knew Boris said, I'm going to go out and tell a lie about this. Never, ever intended to do that. That was never his plan. He's an essentially truthful person.
He lied to Michael Howard, but Michael Howard was party leader and he got sacked for it.
There's one exception to that, and this has been constant through Boris's life. He does not see or accept why his private life should be something that we should be able to inquire into. He's kept his private... for example, he's never taken his family on the television to be photographed with them or anything like that. And he's kept all that out. There were no cameras at his wedding. You see what I mean? So there's always been this area where he feels my private life is my private life. I don't
maybe
use
he's not proud of his private life. Maybe he wants his private life covered up.
That's entirely his business. I have no idea.
But the flaw
that's his point.
But he then sees that with other people. He hasn't got that judgment, that moral compass with other people.
It's not that he hasn't got a moral compass. It's rather, I think, that he doesn't believe he has... he should be interfering in other people's private lives. And it's true that he's too relaxed about that sometimes, and he didn't see the Pincher thing coming at him. Perhaps he should have been more rigorous and more censorious. But do remember, the Prime Minister, who actually had an investigation and cleared Chris Pincher and appointed him last time round, because he's been in and out of government, was Theresa May. And let's face it, I knew Theresa at university. I mean, she's pretty censorious about things she doesn't approve of. She approved of Chris Pincher and appointed him. So it's quite hard to say, well, she did it, but Boris did it, and he's the liar.
The issue for me is not the fact that he allowed this man to be a deputy whip in the Conservative Party. That was a misjudgment, in my view, but that's not the issue. The issue is he has denied having a personal briefing on it, saying he knew nothing about it. And then we found out he did. It's the same as Partygate. He said he knew nothing about parties in Downing Street. Then he got a fine from the Metropolitan Police for being there.
Well, there wasn't a party.
Well, why was he fined in that case?
Yeah, but come on. You say this is a lie because the Metropolitan Police decided later that it was a party and he paid the fine.
Caution.
It wasn't a caution, it was a fixed penalty notice. But I would, personally, if I'd been him, I'd have fought the bloody fixed penalty notice because I still think it's disgraceful. And so I would have done the same with Rishi. But Rishi walks into a room at the end of a meeting because he's coming into another meeting that's starting 10 minutes later. There are some people in the room. He gets fined because he's in the room. I mean, the whole thing is a complete nonsense. Boris genuinely didn't believe that walking into a room where he didn't expect to find people, there was a party. Now, most of these other events he's been tarred with that took place at Downing Street, he wasn't even in the building. He wasn't even in London at the time some of these things were happening.
Well,
but he's been tarred with all of them because people are determined to chip away at him.
Thank you. Very good to hear from you. Lord Moylan will join us throughout the programme this morning, putting the case for the defence very well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And Norman Baker there for the case for the prosecution. Thank you both very, very much indeed. If you want to tweet us, it's at GBNews. If you want to email us, it's... what is it? It is gbviews@gbnews.uk.